This program do not necessarily reflect or represent those of the owners, management, or advertisers of Pacific Telestations, Inc. This message has been brought to you by the stations of KUAM.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to our second of the Candidate Buzz with, of course, our political analyst, Dr. Ron McNitch. How you doing again tonight, Doc?
Good to see you, sir.
Good.
Yes.
Hey, let's just get right to it. Primary election, a few days away. You've got some analyzing that you've done. You shot to me this afternoon. Let's start off with the delegates race. I'm looking at this, you said, hey, Margaret Metcalf is probably the most viable candidate now since 2002.
Sure.
Why is that?
Well, and by the way, there have been many good people who
Sure.
ran against Madeline
Sure.
Berdallo, but in terms of viability,
We had former Governor Joetta,
Right.
Judy Wampet, she
Sure.
wasn't a speaker then, of course, Frank Bloss Jr.
Sure.
Sure. So
lots of good candidates who've ran against her,
and these are known people?
known people.
Okay.
And her toughest competition was in 2002
Okay.
when she had two races to overcome. She had the primary and general election to overcome.
Okay.
This race is different, though. In this race, you have a female candidate, an incumbent, Madeline Berdallo, and a well-positioned female contender, Margaret Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had that before, where they're, in a general election, we've never had that. And it's always tough for male candidates to run against female candidates. And
In general.
In general. Female candidates, particularly female candidates of relative, similar age or experience, that's a different story. What's going to happen is, I think Congresswoman Berdallo is going to find that to ensure that she does well in the general election, she's going to have to rally within the Democrat Party to get that full support.
Sure, sure.
What that's going to do is it's going to kind of give energy to all the other Democrat races also. And so that actually helps their party quite a bit because the Democrats tend to be split apart more than the Republicans.
Sure.
All of them are split apart, but the Democrats are notorious for their division.
I mean, I had the opportunity to interview Margaret Metcalf, of course, through the course of the candidate interview, and yeah, she, I mean, her demeanor, her answer, she's on her game. She's on her game, and I was like, whoa, as a matter of fact, some of the callers, I said, man, we like her delivery, and I'm sure if they saw her demeanor, because I mean, yeah, some people analyze body language and things like that. I'm sure you do at times as well. That all works in her favor, I guess, right? And she knows she's up against, as she labeled, an icon.
Right. And the interesting thing is, Metcalf is sincere, genuine, and actually she's doing this in the right way. She's not attacking Congresswoman Berdallo. She's just saying there's an alternative, and I would like to be the reasonable alternative. Interesting approach.
There we go. Legislative races. Your polls came out this week. As a matter of fact, there was a snapshot for that day. Is it still good today?
Probably not.
Okay.
I mean, when people realized Jim Espaldon didn't make the cut from the top of the mind, people talked about it, and he's probably there now.
Sure. As a matter of fact, when I saw that as well, I said, I think what happened then is I said, Jimmy forgot to remind the folks that he was running. But now he's got more ads out. You see it, because I just I couldn't believe that myself. I said, but people probably didn't know he was running, so kind of left him out of the loop. But I can't see him not making it, basically.
Right.
At least not even advancing to the primary, as I see him finishing again for the 33rd Guam legislature. So, as you said, that was a snapshot of that day. He's got more advertising running now, and I'm sure they'll continue. But the makeup as well, the makeup. Now, the poll you asked, or your students asked, who do you think will win? Does that mean when they respond, do they also say, this is who I would vote for?
Sure.
Is that how that goes?
That's code for who am I going to vote for.
Okay.
But it's a nicer way, it's a kind of secondhand way of finding out what people really think versus people saying, I support this person. very different
Is this
dynamic.
is this kind of a sense here where somebody's here and you don't really want to reveal that it's you asking the question? No, I know a guy that's this, and what do you think of this? But really, you're asking the question for yourself. Sure. So is that kind of how it is?
Kind of how it is, but it's just a more palatable way to ask,
Sure.
who do they support,
Yeah.
without labeling the person a supporter, because they can say, well, I think they're going to be elected because of what my friends tell me,
Sure,
or
sure,
whatever.
sure.
And so that's certainly it's a very effective question format, and it works well here. The interesting thing is, and I mentioned this in my talk earlier today, if the Democrats just cooperated a bit more with each other and stopped tearing each other apart, they could probably have a supermajority if they push for it.
Like a 10-5?
A 10-5. The Democrats could have a 10-5. But the internecine infighting, those infighting things that they do, which are very unhealthy for their party, and so they do things like bullet vote, so they only have their supporters only vote for them, so that denies all the other Democrat candidates a vote. Things like that really hurt the party.
Well, there is one candidate on the Republican side that is pushing that only one bullet vote for themselves. That's it. So I mean, that campaign. I mean, that's a public campaign and asking people to just bullet one person.
Sure. And it's a public campaign with no advertising, no fundraising, and other than an internet presence. And so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, okay.
But
okay.
the interesting thing is, if the Democrats just helped each other a little bit more, they could have a supermajority. But for whatever reason, they don't cooperate, they don't help each other, they don't support each other, and that's unfortunate, and it's to their detriment.
Now, and looking at the polls here, of course, again, I guess it's safe to assume at this point is who they know is running, name recognition and all this, because at this point there are, I guess on that poll, which probably is no good as you say right now, there are only two newcomers that came in. There was a Will Castro and the Republicans, actually, and the Republicans, Will Castro and a Mary Torres from the 10 to the 16 spot there. Why is that? I mean, name recognition, of course, the Mary Torres, family known, okay? Will Castro, I see he's pretty aggressive out there, but there are other aggressive candidates. What's the difference?
Sure. A big factor, and I've said this other times too, a big factor is a lot of the Republican talent has been drawn into the administration for many years. And what happens is, if a Democrat took the administration, you would end up having all these Republicans on the outs. Then they'd have to become hungry and eager to get a political job, and to do that, they'd have to really fight for a legislative job. But in general, most of these Republicans is, oh, we could have a safety net at a loop if we don't make it, and that's how they treat it. And so they don't treat it as heartily as the Democrats who know, this is it, if I don't make this, I might not make anything, because there's a chance that they don't want to risk it. And the other thing is, some of the Republican candidates, they have some very good business people, and they're great business people, but they're not doing so well politically because they're great business people. And so sometimes the skills don't transfer directly. A business person has to develop a political acumen to really connect with people, so then people feel emotionally about them, and then the person will vote for them.
And again, as you said, they're too busy being business people,
right?
Okay, making money, But also, this is one of the first. I can't remember, at least when I was in legislature, or even running, that this is one of the first times the Republicans outnumbered the Democrats in regards, at least by one, in regards to the primary, because we've always had a hard time, again, trying to fill 15 slots. Why do you think that is?
I think that one of the 16 people running for Republican isn't even a real Republican. That's what I think. And the Republican Party has failed to exercise its prerogative and kick people out. We mentioned this last week.
Sure.
And by the way, the same thing on the Democrat side. There shouldn't be a delegate primary race either. The party should have been able to say, here's over the two, here's who we favor, and then either hold a party caucus, party convention, and do it themselves and save everybody a bunch of money. But as we mentioned last week, I mean, there's a lot of money attached to this election, and the parties can't risk canceling the primary.
Yeah. Now let's move down to the AG's race, right?
Sure.
AG's race before we go to gubernatorial. The AG's race, as we talked about this last week, when Liz Barrett Anderson first, first filed her candidacy, it was like boom. I mean, her numbers just flew up. About a week later, it kind of stabilized. I've seen some polls, some internet polls, where it looks like her numbers again kind of have risen that high again. What do you put in these polls?
I think depending on what's going on with the AG the week of the general election, depending on what's going on that week is going to directly affect how well the AG does in this race. And it's an interesting kind of, they're tied together because the AG is an incumbent and he gets blamed for everything and really not praised for very much. On the other hand, the challenger, a very well-liked, well-positioned judge, doesn't have to worry about that. She's not married to the things that are going on within the AG's office. And by the way, the AG inherited a lot of the stuff that he has to deal with.
And that's one of the things, because I had the AG actually this week. I had the incumbent AG this morning. I was speaking to him this morning, and one of the things I asked, of course, I said, critics will come out and say, are you guys pleading too much? I said, no, this is a mechanism that we have, and absolutely. And I'm saying, well, one of the things, again, and he stated that we have assistant attorney generals. They're not really high paid. They want to be government attorneys. I said, is that one of the faults that you guys have? Again, is you're not able to pay them maybe what they're worth, and so you're not. I'm not saying we don't have quality, but are you not maybe enticing, better prepared folks? And when they go up again, seasoned veterans, are out there. And they said, "Oh man, we can." They're wet behind the ears. We can do that. And so, your thoughts on that, Doc? Because as you said, he'll have to pay for that.
Sure.
or she, who is ever in that position.
And unfortunately, when we made the AG this elected position, we didn't take that into account or factor that in. And that is, the success of the AG is usually a direct function of how much support the AG has in terms of the budget or in terms of the headaches they have to go through, the hurdles they have to go through. And it's just unfortunate. But, I think that the thing is, and by the way, this is just to be fair to the current AG. 90% of all convictions in the criminal justice system are in the form of plea bargains. So, 9 out of 10 cases, very few cases actually.
And it's counted. It's counted in the win column.
It's counted in the win column. But that's how our process works, not only on Guam, but in the United States in general. And so that's to be a little bit fair. And our system would not work without plea bargains. The problem is there are good examples of times when maybe a little bit more communication could have been made with family members or whatever, and those are always the headaches. And to be frank, that's a detail issue that happens at the lower levels below the AG. But again, the AG is ultimately responsible for it. And by the way, I know many people in the AG's office. Just because we have a new elected AG doesn't mean they're going to change. We're going to end up having a bunch more remain in that position, and that's great.
Yeah. Actually, I want to talk more about that. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and continue to talk about that, because one of the things we're going to ask as well with this is, what are some of the unintended consequences that happen to the AG's position and office as a result of having an elected position? Because one of the questions I asked him this morning is, do you represent the people of Guam? Do you represent the government of Guam? Or do you represent the agency? Because we've seen those arguments. Be right back.